The crystalline barrier shimmered like a cosmic curtain across the viewport of Monitoring Station 7, its translucent layers refracting starlight into mesmerizing patterns. Lieutenant Cax absent-mindedly traced the familiar hexagonal formations with his upper appendage, while his lower ones managed the routine sensor suites. 50 years of watching the impenetrable defense network had taught the Centaurian officer that nothing ever changed here. The barrier had stood for millennia, protecting the advanced civilizations of the Galactic Council from what they considered the chaos of the outer systems. That certainty shattered along with a section of the barrier at precisely 3:47 Galactic Standard Time. The first warning came as a subtle vibration in the quantum field monitors. Cax's sensory ridges detected the disturbance moments before the automated systems began screaming their alerts. The officer's natural bioluminescence flared bright purple with shock as he watched the impossible unfold on his screens. Station 7 to Central Command, Cax transmitted, his translator struggling to maintain composure. We have a Class 1 breach in progress. Authentication code Sigma 793. The response was instantaneous. Impossible. The barrier cannot be breached. Check your systems for malfunction. A blinding flash of blue-white energy silenced any further debate. Where the barrier's crystalline matrix should have been unassailable, a circular pattern of fractures spread like cracks in ice. At the center of the disruption, a vessel of clearly human design pressed forward. Its hull was marked with simple geometric patterns and what Cax's database identified as English script, UES Horizon. By the seven suns, Cax whispered as his instruments recorded the unthinkable. The human ship was using modified mining equipment, crude plasma drills and graviton hammers that should have been centuries behind Council technology. Yet somehow, they were creating a resonance pattern that the barrier's architects had never anticipated. The Council's response fleet materialized from quantum space, their sleek vessels arranging themselves in perfect geometric formations. Cax watched as they launched their most sophisticated containment fields, expecting the human ship to be immediately enveloped and disabled. Instead, the UES Horizon's engines flared brilliant orange, and the vessel executed a maneuver that defied both physics and logic. It rolled along its longitudinal axis while maintaining its forward momentum, causing the containment fields to slide off its hull like water from oiled surface. The human crew had somehow predicted the Council's standard response protocols and developed a countermeasure that was elegant in its simplicity. All stations, full defensive alert. The Council command transmitted. Unknown human vessel has breached the crystalline barrier using Class 4 prohibited technologies. Initiate immediate containment and disable all outer system communications. Cax's appendages flew across his control surfaces as new data poured in. The human ship's energy signature was unlike anything in the Council's archives. Where Council vessels operated on perfectly tuned quantum matrices, the Horizon's power systems appeared to be deliberately unstable, creating a chaotic energy pattern that seemed to confuse the barrier's automated defense protocols. Central Command, Cax transmitted urgently. The human vessel. It's not using prohibited technology. They've modified basic industrial equipment in ways our systems don't recognize. They're not breaking the rules. They're using methods we never thought to protect against. The Council's response fleet opened fire with their precision energy weapons, each beam carefully calculated to disable specific systems. The Horizon's hull absorbed or deflected the attacks in ways that shouldn't have been possible with their level of technology. As Cax watched, he began to understand a fundamental truth that the Council had overlooked. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, but their ability to reimagine the fundamental rules of what was possible. The UES Horizon pushed through the final layer of the barrier, leaving behind a shower of crystalline fragments and a wake of confused Council vessels. As Cax tracked its trajectory, he realized with growing concern that the human ship was heading directly toward the quarantined Rigel sector, a region the Council had abandoned to its fate just days earlier. Captain Isabella Rodriguez stood at the center of the UES Horizon's bridge, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. showing the shattered remains of the crystalline barrier behind them. The successful breach had cost them 3 of their 4 modified mining arrays, but they'd achieved what the Council had declared impossible. Now came the harder part. "Dr. Tanaka, show me that signal pattern again," she ordered, turning to her chief science officer. The holographic display shifted, revealing a complex web of intersecting radiation waves that most species would have dismissed as background noise from dying stars. Dr. Hikaru Tanaka manipulated the display with practiced gestures, his fingers dancing through the light. "The pattern repeats every 73 minutes, he explained, highlighting sections of the wavelength. "It's hidden in the stellar radiation, using the natural cosmic background as camouflage." The Council's quantum computers missed it because they were looking for traditional communication methods. But human pattern recognition spotted it, Rodriguez said, a small smile playing at her lips. "Sometimes the old wetware still has its advantages." The bridge crew worked with focused intensity, their stations illuminated by the red emergency lighting they'd shifted to after the breach. Lieutenant Garcia at Communications kept tracking the Council vessels pursuing them, while Navigator Chen plotted their course through the debris field ahead. "Captain," Dr. Tanaka called out, his voice tense, "I finished the full decode. It's worse than we thought." He pushed the translated message to the main screen, and the temperature on the bridge seemed to drop several degrees. The message scrolled in simple text: "Entity awake. Neural pattern consumption in progress. Billions already lost. Council abandonment protocols initiated. Please help. We cannot stop it alone." Rodriguez clenched her jaw. The Council hadn't just ignored the Rigel sector's plea for help. They'd actively hidden it, letting billions face extinction rather than risk their precious defensive barrier. "Show me the entity's spread pattern," she ordered. The holographic display transformed into a 3-dimensional map of the Rigel sector, with a growing shadow of red indicating affected systems. Dr. Tanaka overlaid the neural consumption data. "The entity appears to target highly ordered thought patterns first. The Council species, with their structured, algorithmic thinking, are perfect prey. But look at this." He'd highlighted a small cluster of colonies that showed resistance. "These are the frontier settlements, mixed species populations including humans. They're lasting longer. Our chaotic nature finally pays off," Rodriguez mused. Lieutenant Garcia, broadcast on all frequencies, Council codes included. "They need to know why we're here." Before Garcia could comply, the ship's sensors screamed a warning. 3 Council vessels materialized directly ahead, their weapons already charging. "Evasive action," Rodriguez ordered, but Navigator Chen was already moving. The horizon dove down relative to the galactic plane, using the debris field's gravitational eddies to throw off the Council ship's targeting systems. "They're not listening to our broadcasts," Garcia reported, frustration evident in his voice. "Their systems are auto-rejecting all communications from us as potential security threats." Rodriguez studied the tactical display, noting how the Council ships moved in perfect, predictable patterns. Their precision would normally be an advantage, but it also made them predictable. "Chen, plot us a course through the Richardson circuit." The navigator's eyes widened. "Captain, that's a chaotic gravity field." "The calculations won't work," Rodriguez finished. "We'll have to do it by feel. The Council ships won't follow us in there. Their safety protocols won't allow it." As the horizon accelerated toward the twisted space of the Richardson circuit, Dr. Tanaka made a final adjustment to their sensor arrays. "Captain, I've isolated the entity's neural signature. It's beautiful in a terrifying way. The perfect predator for a society that prides itself on perfect order." "Then it's a good thing we humans have never been very good at being perfect," Rodriguez replied, watching as the stars ahead began to twist and distort. "Sometimes the best solutions come from embracing the chaos. Take us in, Navigator Chen. Let's show the Council why they should have answered that distress call themselves." The Richardson circuit twisted reality around the UES horizon like a kaleidoscope of warped starlight. Commander Minji Park's hands danced across the helm controls, making micro-adjustments that no computer could calculate quickly enough. In this region of space, gravitational forces created patterns too chaotic for standard navigation systems to predict. Council vessels maintaining pursuit, Lieutenant Garcia reported, his voice tight with concentration. 3 primary ships, 2 support craft. They're attempting to calculate a safe route through the circuit. Park allowed herself a small smile. They'll need about 6 hours to plot a safe course. By then, we'll be long gone. She banked the horizon around a spiral of compressed space, riding the gravitational wake like a surfer on Earth's oceans. Captain Rodriguez studied the tactical display, watching the Council ship's frustrated attempts to follow. They're too reliant on their predictive algorithms. Sometimes you have to trust human instinct. The ship shuddered as a nearby stellar fragment collapsed, sending ripples of distorted space-time across their path. Park's fingers flew across the controls, transforming what should have been a deadly hazard into a gravitational slingshot. The horizon accelerated, picking up speed that would have torn apart a vessel relying solely on structural integrity fields. Hull stress at 87%. Dr. Tanaka called out from his science station. The reinforced mining scaffolding is holding. Council ships are falling behind. Their safety protocols won't let them exceed 60% stress tolerance. Rodriguez leaned forward in her command chair. Status of the entity. The main display shifted, showing the growing dark zone in the Rigel sector. The entity's neural consumption had already claimed 3 more systems while they played cat and mouse with the Council fleet. "We need to move faster," Park muttered, her eyes never leaving the swirling chaos ahead. "Permission to try something unauthorized, Captain." Rodriguez studied her helm officer's determined expression. "The Council's not going to like it. The Council's not going to understand it," Park corrected, already making preliminary adjustments. "There's a technique some of us developed in the lunar racing circuits. We called it threading the needle." Understanding dawned on Garcia's face. The illegal races through the debris fields. Those were banned after 3 racers died trying to copy the technique, Park finished. But they died because they relied on computers. This only works with human reflexes. Rodriguez considered for exactly 2 seconds. "Do it." Park's hands moved in a complex dance across her controls. The horizon's structural integrity field inverted briefly, creating a bubble of calm space around the ship. Then she cut power to the field entirely. "Are you insane?" The words burst from Dr. Tanaka as warning alerts screamed across his panel. "The gravitational forces will flow around us," Park interrupted, her voice eerily calm. "Like water around a stone." The field was fighting the natural flow. Sometimes you have to work with chaos instead of against it. The horizon shot forward, threading through impossibly narrow gaps between gravitational eddies. Park's movements became a fluid blur, each adjustment timed to the millisecond. The ship wasn't so much flying as dancing through the circuit's twisted space. Behind them, the Council vessels attempted to match their course. Their computers, trying to calculate the safest route, couldn't process the seemingly random patterns of gravitational distortion fast enough. One by one, they fell back, unwilling to risk their ships against what their logic told them was certain destruction. "Circuit exit in 30 seconds, Park announced, sweat beading on her forehead. "Council ships are breaking pursuit. They're not going to follow us through what's coming next." The horizon burst from the Richardson circuit's final boundary like a cork from a champagne bottle, riding a wave of distorted space that catapulted them halfway to the Rigel sector. As normal space reformed around them, the crew let out a collective breath. "Damage report?" Rodriguez asked, already knowing the answer. "Superficial only," Dr. Tanaka replied, his voice carrying a new note of respect. Commander Park's calculations, her instincts, they were perfect. "Not perfect," Park corrected, finally allowing herself to relax slightly. "Human. Sometimes that's better." She looked up at the main screen, where the entity's growing shadow waited. Now let's see if being human is enough to save Rigel. The UES Horizon drifted silently at the edge of the Rigel sector, its sensors probing the darkness ahead. On the main bridge screen, real-time footage showed the entity's devastation. Entire worlds wrapped in shadows that defied natural law, their populations falling silent one by one. Dr. Tanaka's fingers moved across his console with practiced precision, each new scan revealing another layer of the horrible truth. "Captain, you need to see this," he called out, his voice barely above a whisper. Rodriguez moved to the science station, where a complex energy pattern filled the display. The entity's neural signature pulsed with a hypnotic rhythm, perfectly ordered and mathematically precise. "It's not random destruction," Lieutenant Garcia observed, joining them at the station. "Those patterns, they're like computer code." "Not like code," Dr. Tanaka corrected. "They are code. The entity isn't just consuming neural patterns, it's optimizing them. Look at the progression." He highlighted a series of worlds on the display. Each consumed population becomes more ordered, more predictable, more perfect. Rodriguez's eyes narrowed, and the Council's response was to abandon them. Their own people. Because they knew they couldn't fight it, Navigator Chen spoke up from her station. "Their neural patterns, their thought processes, they're already optimized. Perfect. They're exactly what the entity wants." A sudden alert chirped from the communications array. Lieutenant Garcia rushed back to his station, his hands flying over the controls. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's from one of the surviving colonies, New Jakarta settlement." The view screen flickered to life, showing a dimly lit bunker. A woman with dust-streaked face appeared, her eyes bright with desperate hope. "This is Dr. Magdalene of New Jakarta Research Station. Please tell me you received our message. Please tell me someone finally came." "This is Captain Rodriguez of the UES Horizon. We're here, Dr. Lin. Tell us what we're dealing with." "The entity." Dr. Lin glanced over her shoulder as something dark writhed at the edges of the camera's view. "It was trapped here eons ago by the Ancient Ones. The Council found it during their expansion, but they thought they could study it safely. Control it. They didn't understand what it really wants." "Perfection," Dr. Tanaka murmured. "It wants to optimize everything." "Yes," Dr. Lin's voice rose with excitement. "But that's why our settlement has lasted longer than the others. We're mostly humans here, mixed with other frontier species. Our minds, they're too chaotic, too unpredictable. We don't fit its optimization patterns." Rodriguez leaned forward. "Doctor, is there a way to fight it?" "Maybe." Dr. Lin's image flickered as something drained power from their transmission. "We've been running tests. Our quantum computers failed instantly, but older technology, simpler systems, they resist longer. The entity can't optimize what it can't predict. That's why the mining equipment worked on the barrier," Chen realized aloud. "Simple physics, brute force, human ingenuity," Rodriguez finished. She turned to Dr. Tanaka. "What's the oldest, simplest weapon system we have on board?" The science officer's eyes lit up with understanding. "The electromagnetic pulse generator. It's practically ancient technology. We only brought it as a backup mining tool. Can you modify it to generate random, chaotic pulses instead of ordered ones?" Dr. Tanaka was already moving to his station. "Give me an hour." The transmission from New Jakarta crackled. "Whatever you're planning, hurry," Dr. Lin pleaded. "The entity is adapting. It's learning too." "Wait." Her eyes widened in terror. No, it's here. It's found a way through our defenses." "Dr. Lin," Rodriguez called out as the transmission dissolved into static. The view screen showed a wave of darkness sweeping over New Jakarta settlement. "Captain," Chen's voice was steady despite her pale face. "If we're going to save anyone, we need to move now." Rodriguez returned to her command chair, her decision already made. "Prepare the pulse generator. All hands to battle stations." She looked at the spreading darkness on their screens, her jaw set with determination. Let's show this entity that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't perfection. It's humanity's beautiful chaos. The emergency transmission cut through the tense atmosphere of the Horizon's bridge like a laser through darkness. UES Horizon. This is Council Representative Mary Ortiz. Hold your position and prepare for emergency teleport. Before Captain Rodriguez could respond, a shimmer of quantum particles coalesced near the science station. A woman in formal council robes appeared, her traditional garments contrasting sharply with the practical uniforms of the Horizon's crew. Representative Ortiz, Rodriguez acknowledged, noting the subtle way the woman's hands trembled. I assume the council has reconsidered their quarantine order. The council hasn't, Ortiz replied, her voice carrying both authority and urgency. But I have. I've spent the last 5 years studying human neural patterns for the council. What I've learned. She strode to Dr. Tanaka's station, pulling up her own data on the display. This is why the entity can't properly consume human consciousness. The screen filled with comparative neural maps. Council species brain showed beautiful, ordered patterns, precise, predictable, perfect. Human brains looked like chaos incarnate, with seemingly random connections firing in elaborate evolutionary dances. It's not just that we're unpredictable, Dr. Tanaka breathed, understanding dawning in his eyes. Our neural patterns are in constant flux. Every memory, every experience rewires our brains. We're not just resisting optimization. We're actively impossible to optimize. Commander Park turned from her helm station. The entity's trying to impose order on quantum uncertainty itself. That's why New Jakarta lasted so long. Human minds are like quantum systems, never truly settling into a fixed state. Representative Ortiz nodded. The Council's greatest achievement was perfecting their own neural architecture. Every citizen's brain is optimized for efficiency, every thought process refined to eliminate chaos. But they engineered away the very thing that might have saved them. A sudden alert blared from the tactical station. Lieutenant Garcia's hands flew across his console. Multiple quantum ruptures detected. Council ships emerging. 7, no, 12 vessels. The main view screen filled with the sleek forms of Council warships, their weapons already charging. Rodriguez started to order battle stations, but Ortiz held up her hand. Wait. The representative commanded, activating her personal quantum communicator. This is Representative Ortiz to Council Fleet. Security Override Protocol, Epsilon 97. Acknowledge. The Council ship's weapon signatures powered down. A new voice filled the bridge. Override acknowledged, Representative. Though I must note this is highly irregular. So is watching entire worlds die, because we're too proud to accept help. Ortiz replied sharply. Captain Rodriguez, meet Admiral Chen of the Council Defense Fleet. He's here to provide support, whether the Council approved it or not. Rodriguez studied the new tactical display, showing both the Council fleet and the approaching edge of the entity's influence. Admiral, I assume you've been briefed on our situation. Indeed, the Admiral's voice carried a note of resigned amusement. To think, our perfect defense networks, our optimized neural patterns, all of it made us more vulnerable. Sometimes evolution knows better than engineering. Sir, Garcia interrupted, the entity's changing course. It's detected the Council fleet. Multiple worlds are reporting increased consumption rates. Dr. Tanaka's fingers danced across his console. It's adapting faster now, learning from each world it takes. The Council ship's presence is drawing it like a beacon. Then we use that, Rodriguez decided, turning to Ortiz. Representative, how much authority does your override code give us? Enough to requisition any Council resources within this sector, Ortiz replied. What do you need? The captain's eyes gleamed with determination. Everything. We're going to give the entity exactly what it wants. The most perfectly ordered fleet it's ever seen. And while it's busy trying to optimize 12 ships of completely predictable Council technology, we hit it with pure human chaos. Commander Park finished, understanding the plan. The electromagnetic pulse generator, modified to produce completely random frequencies, Dr. Tanaka added. No pattern, no order, nothing to optimize. Rodriguez looked around her bridge, at humans and council representatives standing together. Two approaches to intelligence, two paths of evolution, coming together to save what matters most, life itself, in all its beautiful imperfection. Lieutenant Kai Zhang stood in the Horizon's engineering bay, surrounded by a mix of human technicians and council engineers. The electromagnetic pulse generator lay open before them, its ancient circuitry exposed like the bones of some technological fossil. Council diagnostic tools projected detailed schematics in the air around them, while human hands worked with physical tools to modify the hardware. The quantum harmonics are completely misaligned, one council engineer observed, his crystalline features reflecting the workshop's lights. The energy distribution is chaotic. That's the point, Zhang replied, adjusting another circuit pathway. We're not trying to create a perfect pulse. We're building something the entity can't predict or optimize. He picked up a soldering iron, positively prehistoric by council standards, and began connecting components that were never meant to work together. Above them on the bridge, Captain Rodriguez and Representative Ortiz coordinated with the council fleet. The tactical display showed their forces arranged in a perfect geometric pattern, a tempting feast of order for the entity's consumption. The entity's changing course, Dr. Tanaka reported from his station. It's detected the council ships. Energy patterns suggest it's preparing for a massive consumption attempt. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Just as we planned. Admiral Chen, is your fleet ready? All ships positioned according to specifications, the Admiral confirmed. Though I must admit, deliberately presenting ourselves as targets goes against every tactical doctrine we have. Sometimes the best defense is looking like the perfect prey, Rodriguez replied. Status of the pulse generator. Lieutenant Zhang's voice came through the comm system. Final modifications complete, Captain. We've integrated elements from 7 different technological eras. It's the most beautifully ugly piece of engineering I've ever built. Commander Park spoke up from the helm. The entity's within range. It's beautiful in a terrifying way. The main screen showed the approaching darkness, its patterns shifting with hypnotic precision as it sought to impose perfect order on the universe. All council ships maintain position. Admiral Chen ordered. Remember, no matter what happens, no matter what you see or feel, hold your formation. The entity struck like a tide of living shadow. It washed over the council fleet, its optimization patterns seeking purchase on their perfectly ordered systems. Council crew members cried out as the entity brushed against their neural patterns, trying to rewrite them into something even more perfect. Energy spike, Dr. Tanaka called out. It's fully committed to the attack. Now, Lieutenant Zhang, Rodriguez commanded. Deep in engineering, Zhang threw the final switch. The modified pulse generator hummed to life, but instead of the clean tone of normal equipment, it produced a sound like quantum jazz, unpredictable, chaotic, alive. The effect was immediate. Where the pulse waves met the entity's patterns, reality itself seemed to hiccup. The perfect darkness fractured, unable to optimize what it couldn't predict. The entity recoiled, its patterns disrupted by the waves of pure chaos emanating from the human ship. It's working, Ortiz exclaimed, watching as the entity's influence wavered. The disruption is spreading through its entire neural network. But the entity wasn't finished. It withdrew from the council fleet, its patterns shifting as it attempted to analyze and adapt to the human weapon. The darkness began to reform, seeking new configurations. It's learning, Dr. Tanaka warned. The pulse patterns, it's starting to predict them. Zhang's voice crackled through the comm. Not for long. There was a sound of equipment being hastily rewired. Remember what you said about human neural patterns, Representative, about how they're always changing. He made one final adjustment to the pulse generator. The chaotic waves shifted, became even more unpredictable. I just hooked the pattern generator directly into my own neural patterns. Try to optimize this." The entity recoiled again as the new waves struck it, carrying the beautiful chaos of a human mind, translated into pure energy. But now the darkness was gathering itself, preparing for one final massive assault. "All hands," Rodriguez called out, her voice steady. "Brace for impact. The real fight starts now." The darkness descended upon the UES horizon like a tidal wave of cosmic horror, its patterns now shifting with frightening speed. On the bridge, Captain Rodriguez watched as streams of data showed the entity's rapid evolution. It was learning, adapting, trying to find patterns even in chaos itself. Multiple ships dropping out of quantum space. Lieutenant Garcia announced, his voice rising with surprise. They're human vessels, Captain." The tactical display bloomed with new contacts. Freighters, mining ships, research vessels. Dozens of human ships emerged from quantum space, their hulls bearing the marks of hard burns and desperate journeys. A familiar voice crackled through the comm system. "UES Horizon, this is Captain Yuki Tanaka of the mining vessel Starbound. We picked up your quantum wake through the barrier breach. Figured you could use some help." More transmissions followed, each ship identifying itself. The research vessel Mendoza, the transport ship Rising Sun, the stellar explorer Santos. Each captain reported their vessel ready to assist, their crews volunteering despite the obvious dangers. Dr. Tanaka's hands flew across his console as he analyzed the new arrivals. "Captain, these ships, they're all running different types of technology. No two systems are exactly alike." Rodriguez understood immediately. A fleet the entity can't optimize because every ship is unique. She opened a channel to the assembled vessels. "This is Captain Rodriguez. What you're about to face, I can't guarantee we'll survive this." "With respect, Captain," came the reply from the Starbound. "We've all seen the reports from Rigel. If this thing isn't stopped here, there won't be any guarantee of survival anywhere." The entity's darkness probed at the assembled fleet, trying to analyze and optimize their systems. But each human ship responded differently, their jury-rigged technologies and improvised defenses creating a chaotic web of resistance. Lieutenant Zhang's voice came through from engineering, strained but determined. "Pulse generators starting to overload. The entity, it's trying to get inside the system. All ships," Rodriguez commanded, "activate your modified pulse generators. Random frequencies, no coordination. Maximum human chaos." The space around the fleet erupted with overlapping waves of electromagnetic energy. Each ship's generator, modified according to Zhang's basic design, but adapted to their own unique systems, produced its own unpredictable pattern. The entity recoiled, its perfect darkness fragmenting as it encountered dozens of different chaotic patterns simultaneously. But still it pressed forward, determined to impose its order on these unpredictable elements. "Energy spike," Dr. Tanaka shouted. "It's attempting to synchronize our patterns." Representative Ortiz stepped forward. "Let me help." She placed her hand on the neural interface of Zhang's modified generator. A council mind, choosing chaos over perfection. Let's see how it handles that paradox. The pulse generator's output shifted, incorporating both human chaos and the conscious choice of a council mind to embrace imperfection. The entity's patterns stuttered, caught between conflicting imperatives. "It's working," Commander Park called out. The entity's losing coherence. But victory wasn't guaranteed yet. The entity gathered itself for one final assault, its darkness condensing into a lance of pure optimization aimed at the heart of the human fleet. Captain Rodriguez stood from her command chair. "All ships, converge your pulses on these coordinates. Pour everything you have into one final burst. Show this thing what humanity does when we stand together." The human fleet responded as one, yet each in their own unique way. Dozens of chaotic patterns, all different but united in purpose, slammed into the entity's perfect order. Light and darkness clashed in space, Order and chaos engaged in a dance of cosmic proportions. And in that moment, as human ingenuity and determination faced down an ancient force of perfect order, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council had never seen anything quite like this gathering. The normally pristine hall, with its quantum-aligned architecture and perfect geometric patterns, now hosted the distinctly unpredictable presence of human crews from across the fleet. Their worn uniforms and practical attire stood in stark contrast to the formal robes of council members. Captain Rodriguez stood at the center of it all, the crews of the UES Horizon, and the volunteer fleet arrayed behind her. The entity's final moments played on the chamber's holographic display, a perfect force of order undone by the beautiful chaos of human innovation and determination. High Counselor Lin, who had assumed emergency powers during the crisis, stepped forward. The data is conclusive. The entity has been completely destabilized, its patterns scattered beyond recovery. The threat to our civilization is over. She paused, her perfect posture softening slightly. Thanks to those we once considered imperfect. Lieutenant Zhang, still bearing the neural interface burns from the final battle, spoke up. With respect, High Counselor, perfection was the problem. The entity sought to optimize everything it touched because it couldn't understand the strength in diversity. A lesson we ourselves had forgotten, Representative Ortiz added, now standing proudly among the human crew. In pursuing perfect order, we engineered away the very adaptability that might have saved us. Dr. Tanaka brought up new data on the display. The neural scans from the battle are fascinating. Each human ship's unique response, every improvised solution, they created a symphony of chaos that the entity couldn't predict or control. More than that, Commander Park added, it was our willingness to try the impossible, to break through barriers that everyone said couldn't be broken, to fight an enemy that was supposed to be invincible. The chamber's quantum arrays hummed as the council processed this information. Captain Rodriguez watched as the perfect, ordered minds of the council species grappled with concepts that defied their optimized logic. Perhaps, High Counselor Lin finally said, it is time for the council to evolve again. Not toward greater perfection, but toward a more dynamic future. She gestured to the assembled humans. Captain Rodriguez, your species has demonstrated something extraordinary. Not just technological innovation, but a fundamental truth we had forgotten. The universe itself thrives on diversity, on the interplay between order and chaos. The High Counselor raised her hand, and the chamber's walls shifted, revealing the space beyond. The crystalline barrier that had once enclosed council space was gone, its remnants forming new patterns in space. The barrier will not be rebuilt, she announced. Instead, we will establish new protocols for cooperation and exchange between all species, perfect and imperfect alike. The human ships that breached our defenses came not to conquer, but to save lives we had abandoned. That is a perfection of spirit we would do well to emulate. Lieutenant Garcia, manning his borrowed council console, suddenly straightened. Captain, we're receiving transmissions from across council space, ships from dozens of species, requesting permission to learn from human crews. They want to understand our chaotic optimization techniques. Rodriguez smiled. Tell them there's nothing to teach. They just need to remember how to embrace their own imperfections. As the chamber filled with the busy sounds of new connections being forged, of council precision meeting human adaptability, High Counselor Lin approached Rodriguez privately. You know, the High Counselor said, our algorithms calculated a 0% chance of success against the entity. Yet here we stand. That's the thing about humans, Rodriguez replied, watching her crew mingle with council members, sharing stories and innovations. We don't put much stock in impossible odds. Sometimes the best solutions come from combining what works with what everyone says won't. Above them, through the chamber's transparent ceiling, the stars shone with both order and chaos, perfect in their imperfection. The universe, vast and mysterious, seemed to welcome this new era of cooperation between those who sought perfection and those who prove that imperfection might be the greatest strength of all.